Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion, analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I am Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and here are today's topics. Man United snatching away all 3 points from Villarreal, thanks to who else? Ronaldo. PSG victorious against Man City, punctuated by Lionel Messi's world-class finish. Chelsea losing their second match in a row after falling to Juventus in Turin. Liverpool showing no mercy at the Estadio Dragao against Porto, and a preview of the Premier League weekend highlighted by Liverpool versus Man City. That's what's coming up in today's episode. All right, Robbie Earle, fun midweek of Champions League football. Let's start at Old Trafford, Rob, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under pressure. Of course, lost the first game, match day 1 against Young Boys. Needed to win this game really against Villarreal. Of course, they lost to Villarreal in last season's Europa League Cup final. They did win the game 2-1 with a late show from Cristiano Ronaldo. But of the games today, you kept a closer eye on this.
Yeah.
I watched a little bit more of the Chelsea game, which we'll get on to. How did United play?
Well, let's start with the game, Rob. It was the first European game for a crowd back at Old Trafford for 18 months. It was one of those nights, which is a proper night of European football. I thought this is, big night for Manchester United, with the results that they've had against Young Boys and obviously the Villa defeat, losing in the League Cup, a little bit of pressure on Ole. Everything, Rob, looks right. Big stadium, big crowd, expecting crowd, star names, European night, Champions League. It all feels great till you get on the pitch, and then it starts to. It felt a bit average, mate. I've got to be honest. The football felt a bit average. Now we will talk about the win. We will talk about Ronaldo, but we've got to talk about a defence that we're missing some key players, but didn't look at all solid against a Villarreal team well put together by Unai Emery. We had an attack that kind of had a go, but didn't look like there was a huge threat. I mean, Dan Juma, an ex-Bournemouth player, looked a bigger threat than Jadon Sancho did for Manchester United. And it's a team, Rob, and we've said it, and I think we're not the only people who's had the observation, that at times it looks like it's off-the-cuff football that relies on big moments for big players. And listen, I have to give credit to Manchester United because they were 1-0 down. They came back into the game. Two fabulous goals. Tellez with a wonderful volley from a free kick. And then the will, I would say, what took me, the will of Cristiano Ronaldo to drag his team back into the game, to score the goal that he loves to score, that has taken Manchester United, allowed Manchester United another level. On another night, without Ronaldo, at best, that's a draw, at best. But the thing he brings, Rob, and I saw... There was, after the hugs with the players and the fans were on, I mean, the place was buzzing at the end. I mean, Ollie did his interview some 5 minutes ago, probably 20 minutes after the game's ended, and the place is still buzzing. He has changed the whole atmosphere in the football club. But there's other elements of this football club and this football team that have to catch him up. That's where I'm at.
It sounds like, Rob, that that late goal papered over some pretty big cracks. I know. I mean, I had it on. I've got 2 screens going on, so I saw stuff kind of out the corner of my eye, and I saw that David De Gea, Rob, made a lot of good saves early on. Villarreal found a way through a open-looking, and I'll get your take in a second on that. An open-looking midfield where they got time and space to run at that back four for United, which is never a good situation. David De Gea came up with a few saves. Of course, I noticed that Paul Pogba played in the middle of the park, Rob, and we've many times on this podcast have talked about his reliability in there. He gets pushed to the left because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't trust him in the game today. So how did the middle of the park look with him and McTominay, wasn't it?
Well, it was
did he do his defensive job or not?
Well, as I'm looking at the team sheet before the game, and it looks like McTominay and Pogba 2 with Bruno ahead of them.
Yeah.
The reality of the game, Rob, as it played out at times was McTominay as 1 and Pogba played higher up the pitch. I was really quite surprised. So he almost played side by side with Bruno, with McTominay being the one behind him. And as you said, as the game progressed, and as Emery and his team, who were more in a sort of 4-4-2, 4-3-3, had an extra man in midfield, they played either sides of McTominay and were able to hurt Manchester United defence. Certainly on the right-hand side of United's defence, Darlow and Lindelof got stretched a number of times. Dan Juma and Moreno, former Liverpool player on this left-hand side, got in a number of times. Dan Juma had a couple of good saves. He helped create the first goal with the ball that he played across, and there was real problems for Manchester United. I mean, United were lucky not to be 2-0 down running into the game at half-time. That's how much better Villarreal were and how much more dangerous Villarreal were. I think United had one shot in the first half, Paul Pogba.
Yeah, on the local broadcast here, Rob, they talked about, after the game, they mentioned stuff, and I thought, well, yeah, that's what me and you have talked about. Man United being kind of not a great team, a team of individuals. We know they got star power and tremendous star power. Anything different today, Rob, or was it more confirmation? Can you put your finger on, why? I mean, I know there's some new players into the team, Rob, but it's the team's kind of been around with the manager now for a long period of time. The off-the-cuff nature, the disjointed nature, when you do see, again, managers that have had longer with teams like your Thomas Tuchel and your Pep and your Klopp, I know they've had a longer, et cetera, but there's a set way of playing. Is that still yet to be seen, kind of the strategy with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
What I would say is, and I'm not sure what kind of manager Solskjaer is, unless you were in there day to day, working on the training ground, seeing him around the training ground. Everything that we say looks as though it's coming to fruition. There is no designated style of play. There is no rhythmic play that happens for Manchester United on a regular basis that you go, that's what they're trying to do. Different things happen at different times with different players. And I was looking today, Rob, and I'm looking at Unai Emery's team, who've got some good players, to be fair. Pau Torres, the centre-back, who I think United were looking at. Dan Juma's come in well. Midfield, they were decent. So they're better players, but nowhere near the level of Manchester United, or better coached. There's an understanding of what they are trying to do. Now, if they win, lose, or draw the game, there's a better coaching philosophy. For Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he's won the game 2-1, and it's 3 points, needed 3 points, and all that. And I'm sure he'd be sitting there, maybe having a glass of wine and thinking that's it's a good start now, having lost against young boys. But there must be a worry, Rob, that there is nothing to go back to. There's no formation. There's no system of play. There's no, the reps you used to do on the training ground of how, we'd work and we'd go down the sides and we'd
the shadow play. The shadow play.
That's repetitive, but everybody understands and gets ingrained that you go back to if there's problems, you go back to when things are going well. Manchester United don't have that.
I'll tell you what they have, Rob, and they had it last year. And again, I'm watching kind of out the corner of one eye. I saw United play. I see United play at their best out of desperation. So when they go behind, and there's like this. It's like when they really, really have to do it, they seem to do it. And it happened last year many times, Rob, going behind, come back and winning. They finished second in the Premier League. Again, is that the same sort of story that when they really have to do it, they throw people forward, the fans go crazy, they get a good atmosphere, and they get it done. But without those moments of desperation, they look kind of average.
Of the other best teams, and I'm talking Premier League and I'm also talking Europe, Manchester United lack the control and the composure that those other teams have. Yeah, other teams can, it's a point I want to talk about City, and I'll bring it up when we talk about them. But there's a way that City play, win, lose, or draw. I mean, Liverpool, to a certain degree, you understand what they're doing. There's days when it doesn't work, or days they don't take the chances. Chelsea under Tuchel haven't won today, but there's a way of playing and what they're trying to do. Manchester United don't have that. And I'm not saying until, maybe this is what United are about. The fans got behind them, the place got buzzing, they started to press, they were 1-0 down, they get one each with on 60-odd minutes, and then for 30 minutes they start having a bit of a go. But then Villarreal come into it. In fairness to Ole, he made some decent substitutes. Cavani came on, Matic came on into midfield, and they got a little bit more control there. Pogba came off, and Lingard came on and helped, had a hand in the winning goal.
I saw the little assist. The little assist was pretty smart play.
Just got across and laid it, and then got out of the way so Ronaldo can finish it. So, Ole deserves some credit for that. And we're not here to knock Ole. We're not here to hammer him. Listen, we want we've said we want him to succeed. Let's see how this project goes. I just think there's still worrying signs about a top-class team at home with everything in their favour. They couldn't control Villarreal today, Rob. They couldn't control them. They won the game and take credit for that, but they couldn't control a well-set-up Villarreal.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, Rob, is the control. It's been a little bit lacking with their play. All right. Should we move it on, my friend, to the next game?
Our
PSG.
next game, my friend, is PSG.
PSG.
So I know you had a good look at this one. I saw a good chunk of it, but I didn't see it all live.
Yeah, it was, first of all, I mean, just in general, in terms of like the beautiful game and football and talented players and individuals and silky little bits of football, that was fun to watch. You know, you've got some incredible world-class stars on both teams, but mainly when you look at PSG's front three, when Messi, Mbappe, and Neymar play together, it's pretty amazing. And of course, the headlines go to Lionel Messi. He scores a wonderful goal late on 74th, I think, minute of the game. Plays a little 1-2 and just kind of like shapes to go one way and just pulls it back into the top corner the other side. Edison with no chance. Brilliant goal from him. But it was a funny game because Man City played really well. Man City passed the ball really well. It's one of those days, Rob, where they had tons of the ball. They had tons of possession. They just couldn't find a way through. And this is kind of where teams like City, and we'll go on to talk about Chelsea because it's a little bit similar, teams that want the real ultra control of games with possession, because that build up, because the nature that it's got to be safe, controlled possession allows teams to drop back. I say it a lot, but it's really, really the thing that the possession teams struggle with. And Man City struggled with it. Yeah, there was one great chance where, I don't know if you saw that, Rob, where Raheem Sterling climbs, heads the ball against the bar.
Heads the ball,
And Bernardo Silva kind of finds a way to, from a couple of yards. But really, you know, other than that in the first half, that was the only chance. And, you know, they looked to the eye like the better footballing team. But PSG, to be fair, with the front three, Rob, they didn't really come back to help too much. A little bit. You saw Messi coming back on one side and Neymar on the other side a little bit. But in general, Riyad Mahrez in particular, Rob, had a ton of opportunities to run it as fullback. Nobody's on his back of his shoulder running back. So they struggled to break down a decent defensive side of PSG. The headline really, Rob, is something that, again, we've talked about. And, of course, the more we see these teams, we get more evidence. The need for a front man. The need for a front man in Manchester City. Raheem Sterling played it, Robin. De Bruyne was kind of in and around Sterling. Grealish played on the left-hand side. Jack Grealish wasn't really effective, Robert. You know, it's like at this level, he was absolutely fine, but too many times for me, he's got it where he gets on the wide left and comes back inside and passes it backwards and didn't really commit. So it wasn't his greatest game for Manchester City. But again, that need for a striker, I think, is a pretty big one now, as if teams have figured him out a little bit, Rob.
The point, though, Rob, you make, a need for a striker. What we know is there isn't going to be one, or there can't be one till at least Christmas. Very doubtful it's going to happen then, because there's the right kind of guy going to be about at the right kind of money that can come in and improve. So more likely, we're talking at the soonest next summer. Pep will still believe, I'm sure, that he's going to go through this season to win a title without that number 9, to possibly win a Champions League, certainly get back to the final again without that number 9. So based on what you're saying and seeing from City, is it doable? Because a point born out of the game last night and the rest of the season for City, they've got to get, in my opinion, 6 or 7 players nearing 10 or more goals to make up for that striker who doesn't get you the goals. Now, I'm not quite sure what the Sterling position is. Brilliant for England. Doesn't look as dangerous quite at the moment for Man City. Jesus has been a threat from a wide area. Torres has done a reasonable job. Grealish isn't a double-figure man. Gundogan looked like he had the one season. Not sure if you're going to get those same numbers again. KDB, yes, assists and goals, but hopefully somewhere there. But you're starting to have to stretch a little bit to see Bernardo Silva. Is he going to get you double figures?
Well, that's exactly why I didn't tip them for the title this year in the Premier League, Rob, because I didn't know whether, you've just gone through it, whether they could get the goals again. Can Gundogan score 13 Premier League goals again, etc. But it's a valid point. Also, by the way, PSG did score 2 goals. And I don't know whether they're quite as strong. I know John Stones was on the bench in this game, and it was Laporte and Ruben Diaz, Rob, as the back two. Yeah. Kyle Walker had his moments where he was defended really, really well against Mbappe, I think, and Neymar a couple of times. Cancelo does his thing. He's a little bit different at left back. But they scored twice. In Ghana, the former Everton guy in midfield, scored for PSG. By the way, what an important role he has in the team, you know. And I wouldn't mind just switching and talking for PSG a little bit, Rob, because, you know, again, there's a general thought that with those front 3 players, on their day against some of the weaker teams, they're going to combine and do amazing things, but defensively, they might not do enough for them to go the whole way in the competition. And I get that argument, and I respect that argument. But it's still a good team, Rob. Even in the midfield, right? You got Ander Herrera.
Good workers,
And he's a kind of a worker.
Yeah.
Marco Verratti is a player that I love to bits. I think he's got a bit of everything.
Apparently, Pep was all over Verratti, apparently.
Was he? Didn't hear it.
After the game, showered praise on him. Just said, like, outstanding.
Yeah, he's a brilliant footballer. He played in the middle of the 3 and then just Ghana. So between Ghana, Verratti and Herrera, that's kind of, that's a lovely mix of talent, of passing ability, maneuvering the ball, and fit and protective. So I just think it's a blooming good team. Beat Man City, and I know Man City had all the possession. There was a Kevin De Bruyne chance, Rob, in the second half. Early in the second half, De Bruyne came through and didn't score. I don't think there's any other real great chances that they had. So PSG, you know, this is an impressive victory for them. And with that team, and with a great goalkeeper, by the way, and Donnarumma, made a couple of good saves. Wijnaldum come into the game, Rob, as another midfield player that can do that work to stop those front 3.
You got Ramos to add to the pack.
Yeah, Ramos has come in as well. Yeah, and of course, all eyes are on Lionel Messi, Rob, because he hadn't scored for PSG yet. And the goal came, and it was such a typical, classy little give and go where he's getting caught, so he lends the ball to the striker, gets it back again. I think it was Mbappe laid it off for him.
It was Mbappe.
Yeah, and then just to caress the ball into the top corner. I mean, it's a joy. I'm not sure whether we don't. I guess we don't talk Messi too much on our podcast, Rob. But I mean, I just think he is, like, by far for me the best player that I've ever seen play the game. And you know, I know he's 34. I think he is now. Is he 34? But a wonderful, wonderful goal from a player that's just oozes like so much class and ability. But he'll be relieved. You know, I think he said afterwards. Actually, I think he talked about. He needed that goal.
It's an important goal for him when you think it's Lionel Messi. And you're right. In terms of what I loved about the goal is that he goes from almost static halfway line right hand side, and he starts to go through the gears and he draws people in. And you say he lends the ball, he gives it to Mbappe, knowing that he's going to get it back. And the moment that Mbappe sort of drops the ball back into his path, all sorts of things start going through your mind, don't he? Is he going to bend it to the keeper's right? Is he, he tickles it down the left. I mean, he leaves Edison standing, rooted to the spot because he doesn't hit with pace. He kind of just puts
it deceives him.
It looks like it's going towards him and then starts bending away. I mean, it's a brilliant, brilliant finish. And the interesting thing, Rob, and you've kind of we've worked ourselves to this position. Manchester City had a possibility of going for Lionel Messi. You've talked about a lack of centre forward. He's not your traditional centre forward playing down the centre of the pitch. But could Messi have filled the gap? Could Messi have? Does Messi give them a bigger option to attain the Champions League, win it for the first time, and maybe retain the Premier League?
Yeah, I would have thought so, Rob. I think that the feeling that he was going to leave Barcelona before, where Man City were in for him, that was the time where it seemed most likely, and it was all very quiet in the summer. It was just PSG all the way. Obviously, they were willing to pay a ton of money for Harry Kane. It would go into Messi's wages, etc. And of course, as a false nine, I mean, Messi started it. at Barcelona back in the day under Pep. So he could have done it. Yeah, I mean, of course, it's not the same as he was, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years ago.
Of course,
but still, that quality and the finisher that he is, City are lacking. They're just lacking a presence. They're lacking a special striker. A special, whether it's a false nine or real nine, whatever he was, but a special player to play in that position. And Bernardo Silva's done it. Sterling's done it. Foden's done it. And then of course they're trying to get Kane, and it's gone. And that's we've talked about it. But yeah, it was a really entertaining game, Rob. I really enjoyed it. And PSG, I know they had to defend. It's really funny seeing Lionel Messi run back, by the way, because he played wide right.
Yeah,
he
tackled Morales a couple of times, didn't he?
Yeah, it's just weird seeing him with his number 30 shirt now running all the way back. I mean, again, there's times he didn't.
Weird, by the way, and I've got to somehow get a line to Poch and say, never again do I want to see Lionel Messi lying down behind the wall. What did he call it? Now. I mean, it's not allowed. When you're that good, Rob, when you're that good, you don't lie Lionel Messi down behind the wall.
How was he? I didn't catch that. Was he?
It was a silly free kick.
Right.
And he was lying behind the wall. The one who lies. So if they all jump and he runs under.
What was he? What was to the ball? His back or his front?
His back. He was looking at the goalkeeper. And his back.
Right.
He's got Lionel Messi's shirt. Never again, Pochettino. Can that happen?
Wow.
The other slight thing, I was just thinking today when Ronaldo cracks one in for United with a minute to go and he celebrates and place goes up and that. And
chucks his shirt off. Yeah.
Yeah, and he looked apart. And his will and drive and appetite for goals is phenomenal, despite being the great player and the technician and the jumper, phenomenal. And I kind of thought the two nights summed the two great players up. Ronaldo's sort of will and put the team on his back to get it done. And Messi's was a piece of art, wasn't it? It was a piece of beauty.
Yeah.
And in some respects,
that sums them up, Rob.
Is where they are.
That sums them up.
Ronaldo's about numbers and stats and keep delivering and never get. And there's the other fella can give you those moments where you're on the edge of your seat going, wow.
And it's a perfect point because some people, some fans and supporters and watchers of the game like or admire the desire and the drive and the hunger Ronaldo now what he's done and continues to. Some people like that more than the artistry of Lionel Messi. Everybody's got an opinion on that, and that's what makes them two unbelievable players. I say to my kids all the time, Rob, like when Messi's playing, my boys are here with me at the moment. I'm like, enjoy watching the game with him, and of course they're watching United every weekend with us in the Premier League. But it's it's a good point, and that's how they're a little bit different, and two obviously incredible footballers.
Yeah. Let's move it on to the reigning holders of the Champions League. Chelsea went away to Juventus. Got beat 1-0. I know you were keeping a closer eye on this one. I had a little bit more look at Liverpool, but bit of a surprise result, I suppose. How did it play out?
Well, so really interesting, and again, it's that Federico Chiesa, Rob, the Italian striker. The play was great
well
in the European.
Euros, didn't he?
Yeah, it was really good. Actually, I think he played wide right in the Euros. He played as a striker. Bernardeschi played. They played a 4-4-2. Of course, it's Allegri back in charge of Juventus, Rob. They're struggling in Serie A. I think they're like the way down where you expect them to be at the top of the table. So they're going through kind of transition, getting used to the new manager. And Chelsea did what Chelsea you'd expect them to do. Pass the ball really well. Back to the shape that they normally play, Rob. It was Kovacic and Jorginho in midfield. It was Azpilicueta wing back, Alonso left wing back, and then it was Ziyech and Havertz in behind Lukaku.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, very, very dominant Chelsea. Again, I'm just going through my notes. Possession, territory, tick the boxes, but they lack penetration, and it's a little similar to what Chelsea were like last year, Rob. And of course, all this possession, sometimes they don't create enough opportunities. Lukaku looked a little bit frustrated. Juventus in the second half, after they got their goal, which is like 10, 11 seconds after when the second half starts, Chiesa scores a goal, and then they go into a little bit of defense mode. And there isn't many better when you got Bonucci and Chiellini came on late, Rob, and made a couple of blocks. Juventus are really, really good at doing it. A couple of takeaways for me, right, Rob? Kai Havertz and Hakim Ziyech. we all know that what Lukaku's going to bring. He's already brought it. We also know, and I think I've mentioned this before, Rob, that with Kovacic, Jorginho, and the two wing backs, not really regular positions to score goals for the team. No, not really. No. So everything lies on the front three players.
Yeah.
Lukaku,
underneath.
Tick him.
Yeah,
he's done. Ziyech and Havertz are not doing enough. Kai Havertz, well, I think we all know what a great talent he is. Got to start to bring it, Robbie Earle. He's got to start to bring it. And we all are patient. We all say, you know what? They had a difficult first period. Kai Havertz, when he first came to the club, showed some brilliant signs, scores a winning goal in the Champions League final. Amazing. Not enough. And I know he's been in and out the team a little bit, but I thought he was disappointing today. Yeah. Ziyech was disappointing. Now, if those two players are not being dynamic and creative and a goal threat, where's the goals coming from? Where's the creativity coming from? Now, he made some subs, Rob, around the hour mark. He changed the system a little bit. The youth came into the game. Hudson-Odoi, Loftus-Cheek, Trevor Chalobah came on. Ross Barkley came on a little bit later than that. He does change things, and they look better. They did look better late on, but overall a little bit tippy-tappy, no real penetration against a Juventus team that was set up and defended blimmin' well in that second half. And
the reason I didn't put Chelsea to win the league is possibly born out of that point. I just felt there's going to be little spells, odd games, 2 game runs, 3 games runs, where might not happen for Lukaku, just doesn't get the service or the goals or whatever. You can have those moments. And I just thought, not still convinced in the second tier. The Havertz, the Werners, and the Ziyech.
Yeah.
And I'll probably put Mount in there as well. Are those guys going to get me?
Also, Pulisic. You put Pulisic in there,
Rob. Pulisic, but obviously the injury doesn't help. Yeah. And his numbers would probably mean he'd be getting a look in now. But they slightly concern me. And again, you look at the game at the weekend against Man City, Rob, where got beat 1-0 again, didn't really have an awful lot of threat. Slightly changed the team as well. So a little bit of sorting out for Tuchel to do. And as you say, those players underneath Lukaku will decide how well Chelsea do this year. Yeah. Because everything else is good enough. And the other parts and the other players he can bring in. But those 2 spots underneath Lukaku have got to get you 30 goals.
Mm.
They've got to get you 30 goals.
Or you can spread it around.
But the 2 spots have got to get you somewhere in the region of 30 goals. And
that's where it's a bit of a struggle, isn't it, for Chelsea? A bit of a struggle the last 2 or 3 games, because I know the defenders have stepped up and scored goals. That's going to be the issue for them. Again, it was better. I think Lukaku had a chance, Rob. Actually, a really good chance. The 82nd minute I've written down here, and he put it over the top. That's his only real chance. So if a defensive team do a job on Romelu Lukaku, and the other players are not doing enough, you ain't getting goals. I mean, he changed it. So he went with 3 in midfield in the last, I think, probably 20 minutes or so. Yeah. When Loftus-Cheek came on, is 1 of 3 in midfield. So they're all of a sudden there's a bit more of a threat. Hudson-Odoi came on for Azpilicueta, Robert, right wing back, more of an attacking threat. So what he's done is what he's done before. Talked about it. He's turned up the attacking dial.
Yeah.
Now, whether he needs to have a bit more of an aggressive attacking sense to start with, Hudson-Odoi is a right wing back, and say, right, you know what, you're gonna really get at the fullback if you can, and maybe a guy from midfield, like play with 2 strikers and a 3 in midfield with one of those guys going forward. He's got great options, Rob, at this club, because the squad that he's got. He just might need to, tweak his system a little bit. Now, whether he'll go to a back 4, I don't know. I don't know.
3 at the back have served him reasonably well, hasn't it? And it kind of looks like he wants to go that way.
Yeah, you can still get fullbacks forward in a back 4 and have an extra attacking player, whether it's a front man or a midfield player. So again, it's turning the attacking dial up a little bit. And it's not crisis, of course, for Chelsea. But
it's an interesting time. It's a good time because we've got beat 1-0 by Man City, which City can dominate a game against anybody. Got beat 1-0 in Juventus, obviously won't like that going back there playing them. But for Thomas Tuchel, everything's gone so swimmingly well. Yeah, it's almost like, okay, we'll find out a little more about Thomas now. And that's what the Premier League does to you every week, every weekend. You know, there's no easy, like you turn up at the weekend and it's a guaranteed 3 point. They've now got to find another way of being as successful and having that presence where you don't think you're going to score against them, where Lukaku looks like he's going to score every game. All of a sudden, that's just been turned on its head a little bit.
I'm sorry to keep on about this, Rob. I think I mentioned it before on previous podcasts, but the nature of Tuchel's football, the slow build-up means that teams drop off, they set their shape, and it's difficult. How many times have we seen Lukaku, Rob, from a counter-attacking situation, make those runs in behind and get over the top? What is his best part of his game? There was one game, there was one game, Rob, where he made a couple of runs and he get in behind and he scored. So there's not been many of them. So that the into Lukaku's feet is great, but when a team shut that lane off to him, then there's not much else, and that's what happened today, Rob. So Tuchel's got to find a way, and I think he's smart enough to be able to do that to just have a little bit more of a blend of attacking philosophies, not just all about Lukaku.
Some work to do for Chelsea on that one. Let's move it forward to Porto, Liverpool. Porto 1, Liverpool 5. I'll watch this one, Robin. Some days, you know, when you watch Champions League and one team's way better than the other, but you get in some games where Liverpool were at it, well organised, decent setup against a Porto team that apparently, you know, in Portuguese football, what did I read? They'd gone 35 games unbeaten in the Portuguese league.
Oh, wow. Oh, dear.
Which possibly tells you where the two leagues are in terms of quality and what you get. It was Liverpool with cutting edge. Mo Salah gets a couple of goals. Bobby Firmino comes on as sub. Mo Salah gets a couple of goals. Sadio Mane gets a goal. So the kind of guys you want getting goals got the goals. It was a Liverpool team that had good intensity, played with confidence, looked like they were going to score goals. Porto goalkeeper had an absolute shocker, by the way. Diogo Costa, I think, the goalkeeper, had an absolutely shocking evening of it. But it was honestly, mate, you had to see it to see some of the decisions and things he was doing. But it was interesting. So Jurgen Klopp said after, for the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, it was like Porto had obviously sent scouts to Brentford and were banging balls long and thinking, right, let's rough them up, let's win second balls and do it that way. And it was Matip and Van Dijk who dealt with everything coming forward. Milner played at right back. Trent Alexander didn't travel, got a bit of a believer there. Dr. Robbo at left back. Fabinho, Henson, Curtis Jones in midfield. And then Salah, Jota and Mane with a front three. So it was a proper strong Liverpool team, good intent, good attitude. I want to turn my attention to a young man who probably has gone under the radar a little bit. There was all this talk about Harvey Elliott, and then Elliott got the injury, Rob. Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones, my friend, 20 years of age. Outstanding on the night. Outstanding. Involved. Had pretty much a handle involvement in all 5 goals. Saw him score against Brentford at the weekend with a good shot. Interesting. And as I was watching the game, I thought Jurgen Klopp made a point after that. His defensive game has improved.
Has it?
You know what? His defensive pressing, his understanding of when he hasn't got possession. Do you know the first thing I thought about as he was talking? I thought, Dele Alli and Tanguy Ndombele could do with that same conversation at Spurs where they want to be players. And Curtis Jones is a good footballer. But in Jurgen Klopp's team, you know, next to Hendo and Fabinho, his team have to work and win that ball and compress. And Curtis Jones did it brilliantly, mate. He's 20 years of age, this young man.
I know.
And I think with Ronaldo gone, and Keita's got a knock at the moment, Thiago's different type of players out injured, could just be a little spell for him, Rob. I just think he might have a bit to do. And you know what? He's got a little bit of devil in him. He's got an eye for goal, wants to get in and score goals as well. I just think that he could be almost like that midfield player we've been talking about for Liverpool that they've not had.
Didn't we, when he first burst onto the scene, Rob, with them, I think we did the same thing. We're like, wow, what a player, what a brilliant, you know, how different he is to the other guys. And then he went a little quiet. And we're like, oh, maybe we're a little bit quick on that kind of assumption with him. But no, I saw little bits of the game, and I did read a lot about how great Curtis Jones was. So it's something I was going to ask you about. So it's interesting you bring him up. Yeah, I mean, I just made a note there, Rob, because hopefully I'm going to sit down and do an interview with Jordan Henderson this upcoming Friday for the Inside the Mind series for us. And I'm gonna ask him about that. I'm gonna ask him about the midfield kind of blend, because I know that I've talked about that before, where in a 3-man midfield, it's good if each part of it does something a little different, or is good at doing something a little different. I'm going to ask him about those, Harvey Elliott now out, of course, injured at the moment, Curtis Jones, and how they differ from Henderson, and how he feels about that, and I want to get his opinion on that, about how he feels about midfield players and how different or similar they should be, because pretty interesting in Liverpool.
Make sure you ask Hendo how he'd measure up against Robbie Mustoe.
Well, I'm just going to say to him, I'm sure he must, have dreamed of playing with me in midfield. That'd be actually a good midfield of Earle, Mustoe, and Hendo.
It's got a little ring about it.
You got the goal threat.
He can carry us. He can carry us.
You got the goal threat from Earle. You got the hard work from Henderson, and you got the playmaking talent and cleverness of me in midfield.
Playmaking talent. Okay. Yeah, interesting. No, that should be a good interview, and he gives you something, doesn't he, Hendo? Remember when we went there before the season?
I got to try and get into his ribs a little bit. We'll try and get into him a little bit.
Gave us a little bit about how much.
Give the goals to Mo Salah again, Rob. Mo Salah continues to look $1 million.
Honestly, Rob, Mo Salah is a gift to this football club, and I know this talk. I think he's got 18 months on his contract. There was no way he can
negotiating now.
Club, mate.
No, negotiating now.
This talk that he wants to be top man and most money. Do you know what, Rob? Give it in. He does the thing that's the most difficult and makes it easy. Give him the money, secure him to your team. Know you've got him, and build on what he's done. I think 6 goals in 7 Champions League games, 28 Champions League goals in 47 Champions League appearances. I mean, these numbers, Rob, the 100 goals we saw in 151 games,
51,
the numbers are ridiculous.
Yeah, and he's jumped. He's jumped ahead of a couple of probably 3 seasons ago now. Sadio Mane and him were kind of similar, banging the goals in. Yeah. He kind of elevated, hasn't he? He has elevated to a different level, really, where he's that important. And you think about it, Rob, and we'll just briefly talk about some of the other clubs in this Champions League competition. That there's some shocking results from some of those giants in Spain that maybe he would have wanted to go to, Rob, a couple of years ago or something. There was a little rumor that maybe his people were talking to Real Madrid's people. Yeah, but where else might he want to go?
Yeah, which league do you want to go in that's anywhere near exciting as what we're in? Which league is going to have the kudos of winning a Premier League title?
Yeah, possibly. And the Barcelonas and Real Madrids are not what they were, and that would normally be a place that some of the best players in the Premier League look to go and leave, and there's been quite a few that have done that. So. I saw that he got another couple of goals. Firmino got a couple of goals, Rob. Important for him because Diogo Jota's looked so good. Right. If Jota can bring out more from Roberto Firmino and more of a goal threat that he must feel that he has to do now that Jota's banging in the goals in his position, that's all good for Liverpool. You talk about midfield. We know defensively they've got Van Dijk and Matip and everybody else. They are in as good a shape as any team in the Premier League right now, Rob, with what they're doing and how they're playing. They really, really are.
You do get the sense that, the up front 4 are all firing now, and it's a mix of any, and you can rest one, and you can have a little different look, different chemistry with it. Yeah, 21 shots, Rob, on that, 13 on target in the day. It was like perfect night for Jurgen Klopp, perfect night for his forwards, and sets them up nicely for the big game at the weekend that we'll get to. But yeah, you want to just talk about a couple of these big Champions League powerhouses who are not quite powering at the moment.
Well, I mean, it's almost laughable, Rob. Real Madrid won, Sheriff 2. I mean,
first time in the competition, is it Moldovan?
I mean, I know very little about Sheriff. I've got to be honest with you.
I think.
Have you ever seen such a shocking result in Champions League history? I'm sure there is at some point.
Yeah, some are suggesting this is one of, certainly one of the biggest ever in Champions League history. The mighty Real Madrid. One down, get back to 1 each. Sheriff go and win it. I mean, it just shows where those leagues are, where those teams are now, Rob, in comparison to the Premier League.
You look at the team, Rob. Vinicius Junior, Benzema, Eden Hazard. David Alaba. I mean, I'm just looking at the team. I mean, it's still there's
still quality players, you know.
Yeah, but if you're not playing as a team, you know, and the manager,
way off,
they're way off.
Way off. Benfica 3, Barcelona 0. I mean,
incredible.
Yeah, incredible. Benfica team of great history and tradition, but Barcelona, I mean, Koeman's hanging on to his job by his fingernails at the moment, and as soon as I think things get sorted out at the club, can't really see him being there, to be honest.
No, I think he's going to be under severe pressure right now. Memphis Depay and Luka de Jong are the two forwards in their team. I mean, Memphis Depay, I think he's done okay for Barcelona, but you know, when you think of this enormous football club, those two players to be leading your line up front is not good. I just thought they were that is shocking. Score
when you
lines.
Go from De Jong and Depay from Messi to De Jong and Depay, kind of tells you everything about where those clubs are.
Yeah, and there's still PK still playing, and Sergio Busquets is still playing in the heart of midfield. It's just where they are right now, and no wonder that those two football clubs really wanted the breakaway Super League, Rob, because quite honestly, they need the money. There's massive debts involved, particularly at Barcelona. I think a huge number of debt that they're in, and I think you're seeing it now with the performances and Ronald Koeman. Yeah, I mean, if he continues over the next couple of weeks, I'll be shocked. But it's a mess. It's an absolute mess when you consider.
We talked about Roberto Martinez, Rob. His name's got mentioned a couple of times.
Yeah, I saw that.
I saw that. To see him go. I mean, he's a coach. I mean, it's a different group of players that, in some respects, might be better for him to go in and have a bigger influence. Would he want to leave Belgium at this stage when he's got a bit of a golden generation World Cup coming up?
Yeah,
in less than a year. I mean,
I don't know, mate.
I think he's going to wait till after then, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a little bit of talk of Xavi as well, the legendary central midfield player that I'm sure is going to be manager at some point. It's just not a great time right now. I think to take over the job, is it?
Yeah, it's not quite.
Yeah, it's a big job. It's going to be one of those big transitional jobs, and with no money or very little money. Yeah, they're in a bit of mess. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs because, you know, I worked on the La Liga for many years, and it's some tremendously great players, technical teams, good quality, entertaining football throughout, and it's those two are really struggling, mate. Really struggling.
Okay, mate. Let's move it on to back to the Premier League because we've got a super game on Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on NBCSN. Liverpool, champions a couple of seasons ago, against the reigning champions Manchester City at a full packed Anfield. And don't remember, was it a couple of years ago where City won the title and it was that clearance by, was it Kyle Walker or John Stones off the, it was like inches.
John Stones, I think, was it?
John Stones was on his way back. And I mean, that ended up very much that year, the point between them changing the sort of.
Leroy Sané, Rob, wasn't it? Was Leroy Sané scored the goal and the 1-0 win?
Yeah, away at Anfield, and Stones made that clearance where at that point would have made the difference for Liverpool.
Yeah.
But I mean, some great history between these two teams, both in decent shape. City last weekend, I think, getting the win at Chelsea that sort of put everybody on guard a little bit, like, oh, they're still part of it and still part of the conversation. Yeah. Liverpool in good nick. Looking like there's goals in the team, defensively so much better, and a midfield with a bit of balance. We've talked about young Curtis Jones. So our friends at PointsBet Sportsbook have looked at the odds of this one, and actually they've gone for the draw at plus 245, a Liverpool win at plus 185, and a Manchester City win at plus 135. So my reckoning, that's a slight advantage for Man City. Will be away from home for them to win the game. You go with that?
No, I don't.
Sure, I do.
I'm first of all, I'm pleased that they both played on Tuesday and the game is on Sunday.
Yeah,
that's
plenty of time now.
That's so great for the game. Yeah. So there shouldn't be, you know, both of these teams. I really hope put out as near as damn it their strongest teams. I would favour Liverpool at Anfield with the way that they're playing. Yeah. Yeah. With the front players in great, confident mood, the midfield options that you talked about, Jordan Henderson being back with Fabinho in there as opposed to being at the back where they had to play last year. And I know that Man City was so great in the last weekend, Rob, and the way that they pressed and made it very, very difficult for Chelsea to find a way out. They might try and do that again.
Yeah.
I would. My gut tells me Liverpool for a narrow victory. I don't think City can do it again on the back of, they've had a difficult. We know their fixture was difficult this week, but the end of it and the Sunday, I know there's a little bit of rest period. I just think Liverpool are tough opponents right now for anybody.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I would have thought Liverpool, for me, a slight favourite. Leicester City, we know, can dominate the ball, can disarm you with their passing. And if they do take the chances, every game I've seen City play, they've created chances, just at times they haven't taken them. It's a Liverpool team that have got, forwards in good form, who can score goals. So I would make, I'd agree, I'd make Liverpool's slight favourites on the night. And it's interesting because Ruben Diaz, I heard him do an interview after Tuesday's game with PSG, and he was saying how disappointed he was, really, that they didn't have much time to prep for PSG. So when you're playing these big games after a big match against Chelsea, you really like time. But I suppose what that does mean is it gives you now 4 or 5 days to prep for this Liverpool game. So both should be ready. Both will have had a bit of time on the training ground, get players fit and healthy. So, looking forward.
Whoever, just quick, Rob, whoever Man City decides to play at left back, that's kind of an important decision, that is, for Pep. With Mo Salah playing on the left side. That could be a key.
Or Zinchenko,
Probably, maybe Zinchenko's a better defender than Cancelo is. So that's going to be an interesting matchup, Rob. We'll talk about in the studio. Yeah, we'll talk about that on the studio the weekend.
Just want to mention on that game, Robin, and it's probably the players will be wearing armbands. The passing of Roger Hunt, another of that golden generation 1966 World Cup winner. Apparently he's the only England forward who started all 6 games when England won the tournament. His numbers, Rob, are ridiculous. 285 goals for Liverpool in 492 appearances. Only the great Ian Rush has scored more. And he was affectionately known to Liverpool fans and around that Liverpool area as Sir Roger. And I don't know why, because he was known that. I almost thought he must have been 90, but he wasn't. And all of that group, the 66 group, I think people felt should have been for that reward. But I read a lovely line where he says he never needed the knighthood from Buckingham Palace because he was knighted by the cop. And he said that meant more to him than anything anybody else could have given you. And he was, by all intents, he wasn't somebody who particularly wanted the limelight or the cameras. And, he was one of those who was in the background very much. But his record itself and what people are saying and the kind words people have talked about him now in his passing just marks him out as a very, very special man as well as a very, very special player.
Yeah, I think when you hear people talk about him, Jimmy Tarbuck, Rob, a very famous English comedian, very close to Liverpool players around that time as well, and he talked on UK radio that I listened to this week, Rob, and almost got emotional about what a great guy he was, and the whole kind of Sir Roger part of it was very big around Anfield, and they couldn't believe he didn't get knighted for what he did. And it's kind of been a sad little period of time with some of our world champions from 66. It's getting to that point where a lot of them are getting older now, and sadly, they're passing on. But it's great that we remember him, and the Liverpool fans, of course, will this weekend, because these are legends. These are legends of the game with incredible numbers. And Roger Hunt is another one that we've known his name, Rob, growing up. Of course, we didn't see a ton of them. It's that long ago, but the respect that he and others around that generation, that England team that won the World Cup, is still very, very strong, and people remember him very fondly.
And it'll be emotional at Anfield, and you just get the sense with clubs like Liverpool and Anfield and that fans that they'll want to put out a special performance. And again, that might also be something that just inspires Liverpool a little bit to get that result against Manchester City. Just before we go, mate, I think we should just spend a moment to give a little tip of our hat to Graham Potter and Brighton. They drew 1-1 with Palace on Monday. I was working on the game. Late goal by equaliser by Neil Maupay was enough to give Brighton a point. They didn't go top of the table, would have done with a win, but I think keeps them in and around the top 6. And I mean, what a first start to the season. Graham Potter's starting to get, I think, a little bit more recognition in terms of not just being a guy who can play good football, but there's a little bit more cutting edge towards it. I think they play Arsenal at the weekend, Rob, which is going to be a really interesting game. And also a team that they've got, the tails up now in the North London derby against the Brighton team in confidence. That's 12:30 Eastern time on NBC.
I thought the finish from Neil Maupay was a really good finish, Rob, given the stage of the game. It needed to be a delicate touch to get it over the top of the goalkeeper and get that point. Yeah, I mean, my son reminds me that last season's expected goals for Brighton was really high, and their actual goals was really low. Big discrepancy there, which means if they take some of the chances, then because they create a lot of them, and so far they're doing that, from different areas of the team as well. And we know they're well coached. We know they build up really well, and they've got some creativity. But that's the thing. And I just, as we go forward, Rob, we just keep an eye on that. Can the forward players, whoever it is, keep chipping in and taking those chances when they get them, because they could absolutely remain in the top half of the league table.
Looks lively again. Maupay, that's 4 goals for him. He's only one behind the top scorers, and say they've got
Trossard need more from him.
Yeah, good player. Lallana's doing a good job in there. Tariq Lamptey's just coming back to fitness, Rob, which will be a help on that right-hand side. Remember, for Veltman, brings a bit of pace and creativity. So
Veltman can play as a right-side centre-back. You've got Cucurella,
on the left-hand side.
He's a natural going
players,
forward.
It's
a nice balance. Looks good.
Yeah. Okay, mate, we're going to wrap things up there. It's a mixed bag of results for the English teams in this week's Champions League. Work to do for a few of our teams, but today, I think the spirit of Ronaldo was enough to lift Manchester United to victory. Just before we go, I've got a date for your diary. We've got a fan fest coming on the horizon. It's the early start because it's our first West Coast Fans Fest. That's in LA at the Coliseum. If you live anywhere near or you want to travel over, it's a unique occasion with football fun. And I think it was once best described as Disney for football fans. So that's October 23rd and 24th. The Sunday the 24th is Manchester United versus Liverpool. So that's a huge game. So come down if you can, come and join us. And if you go to NBCsports.com/Premier League Mornings live to register, you can get your tickets there. So we'll have more news on that as we get closer to the weekend. But Mr. Mustoe, Lady Lowe, Mr. Tim Howard, myself will all be there. Looking forward to that one. So but we'll be back on this Sunday. That's October the 3rd, when Mustoe and I review match week 7. Not least the last 2 title winners going toe-to-toe at Anfield on Sunday, 11:30 Eastern time on NBCSN. But for now, I'm Earle. He's Mustoe, together with 2 Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.